this has been an extremely difficult year economically for African Americans. More than 300,000 black women out of jobs. Black unemployment has greatly increased for black men as well. And what is happening is you're seeing folk realize, hey, I have to do my own thing. And we're seeing the changes. We're seeing how AI is changing things as well. Just your perspective of being here, recognizing how we can actually build and expand black-owned businesses.
Great question, and it's good to be here. Sunnyside, Houston is where I was born, where I'm from, so it's great to be home. You know, a lot of people look at this economy and say, oh my God, this is a terrible economy. I'm always seeing the glass is overflowing. I say that the biggest transfer that this country has seen in wealth will happen over the next 10 years, and it's called the graying tsunami. Folk like you and myself that have been in business for ourselves for years, who don't have necessarily a junior to pass it off to, a sibling, a spouse to pass it off to, they're now saying, what am I going to do with this business? We see Black Enterprise every year has their top 100 black-owned firms, and every year 10% of those fall off, and we always ask ourselves, well, what happened to those firms? And if we've surveyed those and found out that the majority of those firms didn't go out of business because they were in the wrong business or didn't have the right acumen. They didn't have a succession plan. And so for many of the businesses and young entrepreneurs that are here today, I'm saying we should be looking at acquiring firms.
Right.
When I talk to corporate America, the federal government, and just people in general, they say, well, I want to start a business. What do you think I should do? And I'm saying you should do something that is already being done.
Right.
I understand that this is a tech conference, but technology runs in reference to everything that we do.
Well, look, what you just said, so I can think back 20 years. I've spoken all around the world, and I've spoken at numerous black chambers of commerce, conferences, summits, and you name it. Mm-hmm. And whenever they ask me to speak, I get the program. And I go through the program, and consistently, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, is not on the agenda. I remember speaking, this is when Obama was president, Ray LaHood was Secretary of the Department of Transportation, and I gave a keynote speech. And a sister came up to me and she said, for the last 3 years, my partner and I were preparing our business to be sold. She said, after your speech, I called him and said, shut that down, we need to be buying. They never thought about acquisitions. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that for so many black businesses, if you say, hey, yeah, I want to start something, no. How about I go buy something that already exists and now elevate it, change it, do whatever, and it just keeps happening over and over and over again.
A couple of things, the reason why it's so much easier, and I talk to folk all the time and they say, well, we don't have the size and the scale and or we can't find you. And so the USBC is saying, well, one, we can create a platform that you can be found at buyblack.us, but more importantly, as it relates to size and scale, our firms aren't going to be able to grow quick enough, organically enough, to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that exist today.
You can't be a John H. Johnson and Ebony and have Negro Digest, Ebony, Jet, and you grow that over 65 years.
Exactly.
You simply can't do it. And in fact, that's also a perfect example. John H. Johnson also passed on radio, was an early investor owner of a cable franchise, sold it. Mm-hmm. And then we see what happened when he passed away, what happened to the business. And so I have long said, I measure a great businessman or businesswoman not based on how they ran the business when they were alive, but how they left the business when they passed on.
If we look at the billionaires in our community, the first one being my fraternity brother, Reginald Lewis, he didn't start a business, he bought a business.
Right.
We can even look at
leverage buyout.
Yeah, we can even look at Elon Musk. He never started anything, he acquired things. And so for our community, I think, especially the audience that we have here today, it is much a better growth pattern to look at acquiring. And the second thing is access to capital is the number one obstacle that we face. Well, if I'm trying to get capital from a bank and I'm trying to start a business with no revenue, no receivables, no history, it's going to be very difficult. But if I have a balance sheet from a previous company, I got history of revenue, I got employees,
Right.
I got customers, a bank is going to look at that totally different than a startup.
Yep.
And those businesses that we're acquiring typically are going to be financed a lot easier.
But we also have, when we say we have these access to capital conversations, I also think that has to be broadened because when I'm talking to different folks, they say we need access to capital. I go, no, we also need access to contracts.
Exactly.
Because, so I talk about where we are in this media business, in the black-owned media business. The reality is, built this one sponsor, $350,000 my own money, 7 years later, been profitable for the last 5 years. But here's the biggest piece. I don't have debt. I don't owe anybody. And so I've had people say, well, you should do a raise. I said, okay, that's great. I can go out and raise money. The problem is, if the advertising contracts don't come, if the agencies don't spend and the brands don't spend, you're just going to burn that cash. And so that's why I also keep saying access to contracts to be able to grow a business. I think about Maynard Jackson when he said that, listen, they're providing city contracts, and he said to banks, you know they got a contract, I need you to give them a line of credit so they can actually float their business for 6 months. And so when we talk about access to capital, I think we have to add that piece. Yeah, you can get capital, but you also need contracts to build and grow your business.
But understand this, we're in D.C. A lot of folk here talking about trying to get government contracts or state and local government contracts. The federal government is notorious for being a terrible payer.
Yeah.
They pay 6 months typical.
Right.
So if you're a small business and you don't have access to capital, but you get a contract, let's assume you get the contract January 1st and you don't get paid till June 15th, you best believe you're going to need some capital to be able to carry the float of the federal government.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right.
So it's a combination. We are going to need the contracts because after we talk about giving us all the access to information and technology, most people say the number one thing they want is an opportunity.
Right.
And once I get that opportunity, now I got to go fund it. And I want to make sure that we give you kudos for understanding that the access to capital starts with the individual owner.
And so, it's very interesting. I've had people come to me and they said, man, I think you're being too aggressive, in calling folk out who don't spend money on black-owned media. I said, well, the numbers don't lie. I said, if $350 billion is being spent every single year and we're getting 0.5 to 1%, I said, I'm sorry, I'm not about to be ecstatic with that. And the reality is you can do the right thing, you can do the pitch, you can do all of the quiet stuff, but for a fact when companies and agencies are rewarding you in meetings. Ty Brown, a friend of mine, frat brother with Urban Edge Network, he said we were on one call and he said, y'all know that everybody in this meeting is being paid to be here except us. He said, all y'all being paid to be here. He said, this is our 5th meeting. And I did with one company, I said, we're not meeting again. I said, this is 7th meeting. Yeah. I said, so the next meeting we have is either going to be a contract meeting or we're not meeting. And then the CMO called me and he said, I appreciate your lack of a poker face because I saw you on the Zoom call and the look on your face said, this whole meeting is bullshit. And I was like, you're correct. And so that's just one of those things that we have to also be willing to press. And some folk got to be called out who are freezing us out of the business or the deal flow.
What happens, and now that the U.S. Black Chamber has acquired the National Association of Black-Owned Broadcasters, we too looked at our existing customer base at the U.S. Black Chamber. These were corporations that were funding us over the last 16 years. And we said, there's not a lot of more money that we can get from them from corporate partnerships and sponsorships. But we can talk to them about advertising. That has been difficult. And Roland, what they will tell us is, oh, yeah, we're going to advertise in black media, but they'll give that to a white advertising firm and then say, okay, go find some black media to advertise.
And then what the white ad firm then does, they only want to deal with the largest black-owned media entities. They don't want to deal with the folks who are smaller, and they give you all the excuses. And we battled that sort of stuff. And I remember when Group Black was created, the whole premise of Group Black was literally, don't come talk to us while all y'all go to them. And again, my man Todd said, can you show me Group White? Can you show me Group Pink? He said, why is it that all of us have to go to one company because the agency, you don't want to deal with us? And again, it's the freeze out, how they actually freeze us out of that economic pie.
But Roland, you have set the stage for everyone following you on how it to be done. And this show is being streamed across the country. Folk are watching it. I had an opportunity to be on stage a little earlier with a media personality who used to be on CNN, and there was a lady talking about, we really miss you guys on CNN. And I was like, you can still find those same individuals just on different platforms, but you got to do a little bit of work. And when we do that work, mainstream America, mainstream media is starting to lose that audience.
Oh, big time.
And so now they are starting to say, okay, well, this economy is definitely out there. How can we now make sure that we're not going to lose going forward? And so understand that we applaud you for what you're doing. Obviously, you know about the U.S. Black Chamber's now relationship with Black radio, Black TV, and Black broadcasters. And so, man, again, thank you for what you're doing. You're making our lives a little bit easier to be able to tell our story.
Well, we're just in a situation now where I talk about the ecosystem because if you do not have a place to get your story told, to control your narrative, then you're hoping and begging somebody else covers you. And that ain't going to happen. Now, especially what we see happening with linear television, with these broadcast networks, these cable networks. We see the explosion of podcasting and digital media. And so all these things are happening. But the last thing I want to talk to you about is, and I've been making this point as well, and I say this to black-owned media, even in other fields, we've also got to we got to stop operating in silos, meaning how do partnerships get formed? How do joint ventures get formed? When I started this, I went to every major black media company and not one wanted to partner. Now, what I'm doing, none of them do. So it wasn't like I was bringing something that you already do. And I said, you already have relationships, you already have advertisers, you already have the entire back end, but you're not doing this. Here's an opportunity for you to be able to sell additional units. And it was a variety of things. Well, no. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Just letting y'all know. But the whole point was we could get there faster if we were partnered. And that, to me, is also an issue that black firms have to recognize. You can still own your business, but you can create joint ventures, because if you as a singular individual can't compete, you as a singular can't compete, but the two of you together or adding two more can actually compete for that much larger contract.
The other thing I want to talk about in reference to contracts, I want your audience to understand this, because a lot of people are concerned now that the federal government is walking back a lot of its diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so for the folk that are watching, understand that the federal government spends $960 billion a year. Of that $960 billion, $640 billion is available for businesses like yours, like mine, to be able to participate and compete for. But of that, historically, we've been able to compete for somewhere around 11%. What we have heard, though, is that is the minority spend. But when you start to disaggregate that spend, you'll find that black businesses in general get a very small piece of even that minority spend.
Less than 2%?
1.5%. But understand that 1.5% represents about $10 billion.
Right.
So we've got to start to say, okay, if we can get from 1.5% to 3%, that's $20 billion.
And that $10 billion that happened under Biden-Harris.
Correct.
So there was an upward trajectory of those contracts.
Actually, when Obama was in office, his first term, the goal was 5% for minority spend. He surpassed that and did 7%. His second term.
Hold on, that was minority spend.
That was minority
spend. What
spend.
was the black spend?
I'm going to get there.
See, I don't care about the M. I care about the B.
But until I'm the same way, and that's why I'm going to make this real clear to your audience. His second term, the goal was 7%. He surpassed that and did 9%. Now you got Joe Biden running for office, and he said, hey, I'm going to increase the spend from 11% to 15%. And I said exactly what you said. Hey, Joe, that's great, but that's not what I'm interested in. I want to know.
I think he made that. I think he said that when we were in Tulsa.
In Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And so I put a tweet out. And I got a phone call from one of the black folks in the White House who was mad as hell. And I said, why are you calling me? Yeah. And I brought up black-owned media, federal government. I brought up several things. And, well, man, but I said, no. I said, I need you to understand here. I am not talking about more contracts for minorities and women, because the W is actually white women. I said, I'm talking about black people. You were in Tulsa. That was black people.
That was black people.
And they backed off. I said, but I want y'all to be real clear who I'm talking about.
You and I both. And what we heard is that under Biden, first year was 1.5%. Second year was 1.51. Third year, 1.55. And before he left, it was at 1.61. So there was some movement under the previous administration, but it takes intentionality.
Right.
It takes transparency, and most importantly, it takes accountability.
And here's the problem we have right now. They're not tracking numbers.
They won't track
so you don't even know if it goes up or if it goes down.
What we have heard is that this current administration wants to move it back to the 5% total minority spend across all sectors.
Total minority spend?
Total minority
As
spend.
opposed to?
11 to 15%.
So they want to go from 11 to 15% minority spend down to 5.
That's where it was when Obama was in office at first, and that's where they said that they'd love to see it stay there.
So for all you punk ass FBA B1 folks who are running your mouth like that, I ran to this ignorant ass Omega on Sunday. I was at a golf tournament. And he came up to me and he said, "Man, he said he had he said, I'm a brother. I'm an Omega. I'm one of the black men who voted for Trump. I never saw anything in my life change on the Democrats. I said, why not give him a shot?" And I just started lighting his ass up. I started laying out this issue. I went all the anti-black stuff. I said, and then I hit the DBA stuff. I said, you do know. I said that, first of all, the two white men out of Indiana filed a lawsuit that the Trump folk told the judge they want to completely get rid of the federal DBA program. Yep. That Omega got real quiet. I said, so I'm confused. What the hell then were you voting for if they want to wipe out all of the contracts?
I think many people just are following trends. And if somebody says something that's slick or someone that says something a little bit controversial.
Yeah, he's like, well, wait, this stuff I need to know. I said, if your ass watched the show every day, you would know what the hell I'm talking about.
Exactly. And I think I hate to say it, you got young people talking to young people and then not experienced many of the challenges. And they say, well, nothing has changed in my life. They weren't here when things were difficult, so they never saw things getting any better. And they've never seen anything worse.
Right.
Many of them that are under 30 years old or under 40 years old have lived the majority of their life under a Democratic president. So yes, things have been good for them. But now they're seeing things disappear that their parents and grandparents have fought and worked for, and now they're gone, and they're saying, what happened?
Yeah, that means that they all have to fight for it too.
And then they will say, well, where are the leaders? And what are the leaders doing? And we're saying, well, wait a minute, what were you doing November the 6th when it was time to vote?
Yeah.
Either you didn't vote or you voted incorrect.
Yeah, everybody has a role to play in this.
Exactly.
All right, Ron, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us, man. Thank you.
And Scott Bowden, look at that. See, Scott, I let a capper on my show. I told y'all, it's a couple of y'all I let it happen.
Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate it.
All right.